Over the past few months, I've talked about a lot of high-end drones. Well, this week, let's look at something a little more reasonable and talk about the Parrot Anafi Thermal. So stick around. It's pretty obvious to me when I look at the number of views on the Parrot Anafi USA and the Parrot Anafi AI that you guys are interested in Parrot products. So I thought I'd do something a little different this week, because if we look at pricing, the Parrot Anafi USA starts at about $7,000. The Parrot Anafi AI starts at we don't know. But both of those are pretty much out of reach for most people out there in the industry, and I want to look at something a little more reasonable. So today, we're talking about the Parrot Anafi Thermal. Good little drone. 2 cameras, 4K and a FLIR thermal camera. And just to get pricing out of the way in the very beginning, how much do you think this one is? $1,900. And what do you get for $1,900? Well, first of all, you get the drone with the dual cameras and a battery. That's a good thing. But in addition to that, you get not one, but 2 additional batteries for backups. You get spare propellers, which most drones give you. You get a controller, which I'll talk more about in a minute. You also get an adapter for your tablet to go on the controller so it fits well. You get international adapters if you're traveling. And you get this multi-port charger that I'll also talk about in another minute. And on top of all that, you get a very nice carrying case to carry all this stuff in. So that's a lot of money, or I'm sorry, that's a lot of product for $1,900. So if you buy it, what can you use it for? A lot of good inspection applications for this. If you're a building inspector, a home inspector, roofing inspector, whatever, a thermal drone could be invaluable to you. You can look for water intrusion. You can look for gaps of insulation where maybe heat or cooling is escaping from the building. You could use it for solar farms or solar panels on homes. A lot of good applications. You could use it for power line inspection, substations. Did I really say that? Can you imagine walking into a power company and saying, this is a drone I'm going to use to inspect your substation? They'd probably laugh at you and throw you out. So this wouldn't work for high-end applications like that, but there are other drones in the market that would suit that. Now, if you're not a licensed thermographer, you need to be careful about that and check your local codes and rules for certifications. Right now, in most parts of the country, you can do this kind of work without a thermographer's license, but you still need to have training to know how to interpret the pictures you take. Let's look at a couple thermal videos. Now, here's the first one. Initially, I get into the visible light spectrum, normal 4K picture. Then I switch to thermal. You can see the heat radiating off of me. You can see how that compares to the cooler ground around me. And even though this is a low resolution thermal camera, what Parrot does is use the 4K footage in the background to give you a good outline on what you're looking at. And I can click on any part of the screen and get an actual temperature of that location. Also, in Parrot's FreeFlight 6 software, there's an analysis tab where you can click on that and get more information about these videos or photos that you're taking. Now here's another one, a little higher up, looking across the landscape, and you can see the big lake in the distance, and it's much cooler than the ground around it. So I know you can get the specs a lot of other different places, so rather than rattle those off to you again, Let's talk about the pros and cons of using this drone. Pros. Well, of course, the first one is price. At $1,900, you get a lot of bang for your buck right here. Secondly, one thing I really like about this drone is the camera. Because the way it's designed, it will shoot 90 degrees up and 90 degrees down. Think how that can benefit you. You could look under bridges, under eaves of houses, 360 video panoramas, lots of things like that. I like that design. The other thing I like is this multi-port charger. Look at this thing. I've got 4 adapters on the back. I could plug in all 3 batteries and my controller and charge everything at the same time. I think that's pretty great. It's got lossless zoom, which I like. And the other thing that it does that I like and may not be important to you is you can hand launch and hand land this drone. And that becomes real important in certain areas where there's not a level surface to take off on. I don't have to spread out my big orange target. I can take off from my hand and land on my hand. Now, it does take some practice. It's a little disconcerting to begin with, but it's real advantageous. That and the Skydio 2 are very good at this. It's also got something called arcade mode. Now, this is pretty interesting. If you set it to arcade mode, you get 2 circles in the center of your screen, which shows where the camera's looking. Then, if you push this joystick, whoops, let me get this around here. If you push this joystick, that will tilt the drone up or down to follow the camera. Same thing with right or left. And once you get the camera oriented where you want it, you push forward on the right stick and it will follow that direction. So what I'm saying is, if the left stick, if I push up and the camera tilts up, then I push forward on the right stick, not only is it going to go forward, it's going to go up. So it's just a different way of controlling the camera. I've played with it a little bit. It's kind of cool. I don't know if I'd use it a lot, but it's kind of a neat feature. Now cons, and here's the controller. That drives me crazy. There's no on-off switch. You have to open it up to turn it on and close it to turn it off. I think that's a poor design. Because of the way the camera is designed, as much as I like it, you cannot get an ND filter to fit on that 4K camera. So that's a downside. The other thing, take the battery out. There's our SD card. That is a dumb design. That's like the old SIM cards in our old cell phones. The little metal door, you have to slide one or the other, tilt it open, pull the card out. That's guaranteed to break. And I think that's a bad design. The other thing, it doesn't have obstacle avoidance. Now that could be both good or bad depending on how good you are as a pilot. Doesn't bother me. For a new pilot, it could be a problem. But it does save money in not having that. The other thing is, FLIR Tools used to have a software program that would analyze this. As near as I can determine, they're no longer supporting that. So you have to rely on the free flight software. So that's a little bit of a downside. And just as a side note, if you don't need the thermal capabilities, you can actually buy that drone for less than $700 without the thermal camera. So there you have it. What do you think? Does that have a place in your fleet? It's got some good specs to it. The thermal aspect of it is really neat. You can get into thermal without spending a lot of money. I think it's a pretty good idea. I hope you learned a lot from this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe down below. And if you feel like sharing with your friends, please do so. That would be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you so much.